SLT Mobitel Fiber, the fiber of the nation. SLT Mobitel Fiber, the fiber of the nation.
Domex Fellam sa විසබීජ අවම කර දින 3ක් දක්වා ටොයිලට් එක ෆ්‍රෙෂ්ව තමයි. Domex.
Tonight, economic diplomacy. Sri Lanka's envoy to Japan calls for a CEPA agreement to balance SL-Japan trade.
Garments and tea, which we are taxed at about 12%, are two areas that we can excel if we have a preferred trade agreement.
On the right path, central bank governor offers a firm no to taking the IMF approach.
So if we can achieve the same result with less pain and with less uncertainty, with less amount of political as well as economic turmoil, I think that's the option that we should choose.
Shining through, Indian tech giant opens mega office in Colombo, which the Indian High Commissioner says represents opportunity amidst challenges.
Opportunity not for just big names, but opportunity for our young friends, because the future belongs to them.
Booming questions following a fourth gas-related explosion. Gas retailers continue to insist it's not the cylinders.
All the instances that got reported thus far are stemming from handling or appliance-related issues. Our message is, please check your appliances, the quality of the appliances.
All this and much more coming up on this Thursday, the 25th of November, 2021.
Nelly, මතකෙන් ගිලිහුණු black shiny කෙස් කලඹක රහස sunsilk black shine සමගින්.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I am Shanella Fernando in your top stories for tonight. Sri Lanka's ambassador to Japan, Sanjeev Gunasekara, says that Sri Lanka needs to negotiate a comprehensive economic partnership with Japan, focusing on key export products such as apparels and tea if it is to move towards a better bilateral trade balance. Speaking to Indivari Amuwatta on our current affairs program at Hyde Park on AdaDerana 24, the Ambassador Gunasekara also announced the visit of representatives from the premier Japanese blue chip Marubeni Corporation, who will be looking at a $375 million wind power project in Mana. He added that the company will also be eyeing floating solar projects in the island as well. Meanwhile, you can catch the repeat telecast of tonight's Hyde Park episode featuring the ambassador on Monday the 29th at 1 p.m.
So there's a lot of work going on between Sri Lanka and Japan. I think you're looking at promoting trade. There's an aggressive plan. The missions are brought together. So tell me what you're working on now.
The foreign policy doctrine currently is foreign relations through economic relations. So with this, investments to Sri Lanka in this current juncture is very important. We break it down to two sections, the public investments and the private sector investment. On the public sector investment, we go through agencies like JICA for funding. And I'm happy to mention that after 7 years, JICA Director General visited Sri Lanka last week. So our funding is on the up and up. They looked at 3 or 4 large new projects to commence in addition to the current projects that are continuing. And also I'm happy to say I'm here because we are hoping to receive Marubeni today, and green energy, and with the 70% renewable energy plan by His Excellency the President, that sounds and fits very well with the Japanese economy and the vision. So that has rung a bell in Japan, and I hope with a commitment from Marubeni there will be many other private investments that will follow, and some of which that we have been working for the last few months.
Tell us a little about Marubeni, their interest, and how we're going to look at supporting them here in Sri Lanka.
Well, support is the key word. Bringing Marubeni to Sri Lanka is only part of the puzzle. Marubeni is a $67 billion revenue company, over 100 years old. It's a blue chip Japanese company, trading house, and now they are a conglomerate. Their biggest piece of their revenues is the power generation, and that breaks down to solar and wind power. and they are in 27 countries. They are looking at a 200 megawatt wind power project in Mana, and also their head of power generation is also coming today, and they'll be looking at other feasible solar power and floating solar power projects in Sri Lanka.
But what is the extent of the investment, and how are we looking at this directly impacting the community here?
The 200 megawatt wind power project is estimated to cost somewhere around $375 million. So this is a private-public partnership where it will come back to the government in 20 years. The wind direction in Mana is one of the few places in the world the wind direction doesn't change much. So the efficiency is very high, minimal cost after the initial capital outlay for generation of electricity. So this is what we hope, that we can bring the cost of electricity down.
Speaking further, Ambassador Gunasekara also touched on how the massive trade gap between Sri Lanka and Japan could be bridged, saying that the best way forward remains in negotiating a selective preferential trade agreement for selective Sri Lankan export products, namely apparels and CEYLON tea.
Japan has been one of Sri Lanka's strongest trading partners, but none of this trade is in favor of us. What challenges do you see in Sri Lanka moving ahead in expanding our trade with Japan?
So that's a good question. Comprehensive economic partnership, that's the word for Japan. Even between the ASEAN countries, Japan has a comprehensive economic partnership. They are negotiating that partnership further with India, and they are already looking with Bangladesh for 2026 when they elevate themselves from a less developed country. Now Sri Lanka being already elevated from being a less developed country, our tariffs have gone high. A comparison is the apparel trade, where we have 8 to 12% tariff and Bangladesh has a 0% tariff, and they export 1.3 billion. Though Sri Lanka is much higher in the quality and value-added chain. Garments and tea, packaged tea, which we are taxed at about 12%, are two areas that we can excel if we have a preferred trade agreement or a free trade agreement. But there's a sentiment that Sri Lanka, being a small country, a comprehensive free trade agreement might not benefit Sri Lanka. So that's up to the experts to decide. But these are two products that we will see immediate results in the apparel sector and the tea sector, which are very vibrant and which is very profitable for Sri Lanka in foreign exchange, if we can get some kind of a preferred trade agreement.
Big 3.
Another explosion due to a gas leakage occurred in Kot Tower today, making it the fourth within a period of 3 weeks. Following these 4 explosions, Litro Gas Lanka Limited maintains their stance that their gas cylinders are not at fault. The company's chairman, Teshara Jayasinghe, pointed the blame at bad handling and faulty appliances as the main reason behind these explosions. During the past 3 weeks, incidents of explosions involving gas cylinders have been reported in areas of Waligama, Ratnapura and Colombo 7. According to the Government Analyst Department, the reasons behind the explosions are gas leaks. In this backdrop, there were also accusations levelled against gas retailers of resorting to profiteering by changing the normal propane-butane ratio in their cylinders, causing them to explode. However, yesterday, the country's largest gas retailer, Litro Lanka Limited, offered firm assurances that this was not the case. However, not even 24 hours after yesterday's assurance was given, another explosion was reported today in the area of Kot Tower. When the previous incidents are taken into consideration, all of them were reported from commercial establishments such as restaurants and bakeries. This time around, however, it happened in a domestic household. The incident was said to have occurred around 4:45 a.m. The explosion had caused damage to the roof of the kitchen. According to our area correspondents, Litro gas cylinders were seen at the explosion sites in Waligama, Ratnapura as today as well in Kot Tower. However, Litro Gas Lanka Limited continues to insist that it isn't their cylinders that are at fault.
It is unfortunate that we got several reports coming in very short span of time. It is quite abnormal, and we also see there is a lot of social media content also getting circulated. However, the technical reality or the technical truths about these stories connecting to Litro and the quality of gas is unfound. According to the analyst reports and the police reports that we have, the situation is stemming from the appliances that has been used. To the last instance that got reported today, we don't have the official reports as yet, but all the instances that got reported thus far are stemming from actually handling or appliance related issues. So therefore, our message is please check your appliances, the quality of the appliances, and make sure that the products that you use and the appliances you use are up to the standard.
Jai Singha also once again denied the composition change claims.
I have taken all the steps necessary that we are in compliance to the relevant SLS standard, and we have rigorous processes to ensure we take 3 separate reports to confirm that we are in compliance to the SLS standard. So please have no hesitation and have no doubt about using Litro, and I can confirm you that you will get the same gas you had been using for ages.
In the meantime, the Government Analyst Department announced their reductions after inspecting the gas explosion sites.
නිරීක්ෂණය කළ කරුණු වලට අනුව මෙම ස්ථානවල ගෑස් ටැංකි කිසිවක් පුපුරා ගොස් නොතිබූ බව විශේෂයෙන් ප්‍රකාශ කළ යුතුයි. සිදුව ඇත්තේ එම ගෑස් නැත්නම් ද්‍රව පෙට්‍රෝලියම් වායුව නිදහස් වී එම නිදහස් වූ වායුව අපේ වාතයේ පවතින ඔක්සිජන් වායු ඇතුළු අනිකුත් වායු මිශ්‍රණය සමග මිශ්‍ර වීම නිසා ඇති වූ වායු මිශ්‍රණය තමා පුරා යාම සිදුවන්නේ සෑම විටම. මෙම වායු මිශ්‍රණය ජෝලනය වීම විශේෂයෙන් විදුලි පුළිඟුවක් මගින් සිදුවිය හැකියි. තමුන්ගේ නිවසේ විදුලි පරිපත සම්බන්ධයෙන් මෙහිදී වැඩිපුර සැලකිලිමත් වෙන්න. මා පරීක්ෂා කරපු ස්ථානවල මට හැඟී ගිය ආකාරයට එල්ලෙන වයර් හැමතැනම තියෙන නිසියාකාරව සාධන ලද පරිපත නොතිබූ බව නිරීක්ෂණය කළ යුතුයි. විශේෂයෙන් මෙවැනි පරිපතයකදී විදුලි පුළිඟුවක් නිකුත් වීමේ හැකියාව තිබෙන බැවින් විශේෂයෙන් පැරණි සීතකරණ වලින් මෙවැනි අනුතුරක් වීමේ හැකියාව ඉතා ඉහළ බව මා ප්‍රකාශ කරන්න කැමැතියි.
The opposition today took aim at the country's foreign policy, with the Samagi Jana Balawegya claiming that the country's diplomatic relations lack a coherent strategy and are merely transactional. Adding to that, Ahila Ilange Tamil Congress parliamentarian Gajendra Kumar Ponnambalam warned Sri Lanka over its pivot towards China, stating that the strategic presence of the Chinese in the country has created a geopolitical contestation with other superpowers, including India. Meanwhile, also speaking during today's debate, Foreign Minister Professor G.L. Pires insisted that Sri Lanka will not bow down to any foreign nation and added that Sri Lanka's respect will be preserved at any cost. The Parliament today debated the Ministries of Foreign Affairs as well as mass media during the committee stage deliberations.
The conduct of diplomatic relations during the past 2 years of this regime, there is an apparent lack of any coherent strategy. This relationship with the Organization of Islamic Conference is very vital to our country. We have reaped a lot of benefits by their benevolence towards us. But our approach has been almost needs-based. It's mostly transactional. During the pandemic, we observed the horrifying experience that the Muslims of this country went through. The Organization of Islamic countries all got together, and all the resident ambassadors wrote to His Excellency the President asking him to desist from this practice of cremating the Muslim janazas. That request was totally ignored, not even a courtesy of a reply. And finally, what do? You, for a transactional purpose, withdraw this regulation because you wanted the votes at the UN Human Rights Council. This is why I say our diplomatic relations have been transactional.
Sri Lanka, unfortunately, whichever party that came to power, regardless, has had a foremost policy of pursuing a Sinhala Buddhist identity. To pursue that Sinhala Buddhist notion of the state, Sri Lanka had to pander to China to such an extent that it is so indebted to China today that it has allowed China to in fact come into Sri Lanka in a strategic way, so closely. And China's policy generally is that it unquestioningly will support a state provided its own interests are looked after by that state. China's influence over Sri Lanka is not benign, and if anyone tries to make that position out, they are lying, and as a consequence you have created a geopolitical contestation between China and the US and India on the other hand. Sri Lanka could have used these geopolitical contestations to its benefit if only Sri Lanka is prepared to change its domestic policies, rethink itself into a plurinational state that recognizes the different identities and its plurality, and in fact celebrates that very diversity. You have people like Venerable Jnanasara Thera of the Budubalasena type heading a task force that is supposed to be pursuing reconciliation. I mean, how more ridiculous can you get?
පිටරටවල් කවුරුත් ඉදිරියේ ධන ගහන්න එපා කිව්වා. අපි ධන ගහන්නේ නැහැ. මේ රටේ ආත්ම ගරුත්වයේ තේජස ආරක්ෂා කර ගැනීමෙන් තමයි අපි විදේශ ප්‍රතිපත්තිය මෙහෙවන්නේ. ඒතර හරි දේ අපි කරනවා ඒ අය සමග හැම දෙයකම අපි අවනත වන්නේ නැහැ. The institutions that are working on the ground, like the Office of Missing Persons, the Office of Reparation, the Office of National Unity and Reconciliation, then the Sustainable Development Goals 16 Council. Every week I monitor those with the senior officials of the ministry, and very substantial progress is being made in each of those areas. So you ask me what I'm going to say in Geneva in March, there's a convincing story to tell. Not cosmetic, but there is real progress on the ground with regard to these issues. All we ask for is a sense of objectivity in evaluating the progress which has been made.
More news on the other side of this break. Stay tuned.
මිලියන 18.8 නිවස ලක්ෂ 5ක් ගෙවා දැන්ම වෙන් කරවා ගන්න මල්බෙරි රෙසිඩන්ස්.
Welcome back in more news. Deputy Director General at the Ministry of Health, Dr. Hemant Herath, urged the education sector not to be quick to close schools if a COVID-19 case is detected. He urged them to adhere to the guidelines published by the Director General of Health Services to ensure that education activities are carried out uninterrupted.
From the 22nd of November, all school grades began functioning after grades 6, 7, 8 and 9 commenced classes. However, taking the country's pandemic situation into account, the Director General of Health Services, Dr. Asala Gunawardana, published a new set of guidelines to be practiced by school staff in the case of a suspected or confirmed case of COVID-19 in schools. The guidelines call for isolation of students or the staff in sick rooms or an isolation room. It is a must to ensure that the location is safe and well ventilated. If the infected is a child, the parent or guardian needs to be informed to arrive at the school as soon as possible. The staff of the school then must inform the relevant area MOH or PHI regarding the symptomatic child or the staff member. After this, the MOH is expected to coordinate and arrange rapid antigen testing for parents with symptoms. The guidelines also say that school authorities can also bring the suspected patient to the nearest hospital for a rapid antigen test. Finally, if the student needs hospitalization, they must be accompanied by a parent, guardian or the teacher. Further, the request of health authorities is to adhere to these guidelines to keep the COVID-19 spread in schools at a minimum level and to ensure the continuation of uninterrupted education activities.
It is important not to overreact and close the schools or classes unnecessarily. If any doubt or any unclear area, it is very important to contact the medical officer of health of the area or the public health inspector and get clear instructions as to what should be done, so that with minimal interference to the school activities, we should be able to manage these children who are detected at schools with symptoms.
The Department of Meteorology warned that showers of over 100 millimeters could be expected across some parts of the island due to the formation of a low-pressure zone in the southwest part of the Bay of Bengal. The National Building Research Organization, meanwhile, also renewed its landslide warning today and issued a level 2 warning to 5 areas in 4 districts.
Sri Lanka is once again experiencing cloudy skies and showers varying from 100 to 75 millimeters due to a low-pressure zone that has formed in the southwestern part of the Bay of Bengal. The Department of Meteorology said that the low-pressure zone still persists over the east of Sri Lanka. As such, heavy showers above 100 millimeters can be expected in some places in the northern, north-central, western, Sabaragamuwa, central and Nuba provinces and in the Puttalam and Trincomalee districts. In addition, the department said that fairly heavy showers of above 75 millimeters could also be expected. However, the heavy showers that have persisted over the past few days have led to several areas within the district of Vavuniya being inundated. The inclement weather also led towards slips in many areas, resulting in heavy traffic.
Due to prevailing weather conditions as well as weather prediction issued by the Department of Meteorology, the landside early warning message has been issued at 2 p.m. today and it is effective until 2 p.m. tomorrow in the following areas. With that, level 2 amber warning issued to Ududumbura Division Secretary Division Kandy District, Ridigama and Mawatakama Division Secretary Division Kurnagal District, Ambanga Korle Division Secretary Division Mathura District, Ahliyagoda Division Secretary Division Ratnagala District. And warning level 1 watch warning was issued to Paduk and Sitavaka Division Secretary Division Kalambu District, Mulatsinhala, Ingiriya, Agalawatta and Palindanura Division Secretary Division Kamtura District, Pathadumbara, Doluwa, Pathahevahata and Madadumbara Division Secretary Division Kandy District, Alawa and Narambala Division Secretary Division Kurnagal District, Ukuyala, Rattota, Mathale and Laggala Pallegama Division Secretary Division Mathura District, Walapane, Anguranketa, Nuvarelia, Kotmale and Ambagamu Korle Division Secretary Division Nuvarelia District, Kiriala, Kuruvita, Ayagam and Ratnapura Division Secretary Division Ratnapura District.
Meanwhile, the Department of Irrigation today issued an amber alert for a considerable flood situation in the low-lying areas of the Daduroya River Basin, as the reservoir's spilling discharge is expected to be increased with the heavy rainfall. Due to this, the stretch of the Anuradhapura-Kurunagal road in the area of Alla had been completely inundated due to the water discharge.
Sri Lanka, India, along with HCL Technologies have been able to show the world that there is an opportunity in every challenge, especially the COVID-19 pandemic. These were the remarks made by High Commissioner of India, Gopal Bagle, during the inauguration of Indian tech giant HCL Technologies' new 4,000 staff facility in Colombo today.
Indian multinational information technology service company HCL Technologies inaugurated its newest facility at Cinnamon Live today. The event was graced by High Commissioner of India in Sri Lanka, His Excellence Gopal Bagle, and Minister of Finance Basil Rajapaksa. The HCL facility will be able to accommodate 4,000 employees, making it the single largest facility of its kind in the country. The Indian tech giant entered the island last year with the aim of making it a global technology and its services delivery hub for some of the largest corporations in the world.
When the world was wondering what to do during the COVID times, HCL stood up, Sri Lanka stood up, India stood up, and we showed the world that there is no challenge which cannot be an opportunity. Opportunity for whom? Opportunity not for just big names, but opportunity for our young friends, because the future belongs to them. When they learn, when they grow, when they work, when they earn, the country grows with them, humanity grows with them, we all progress with them. So I am very grateful for giving us, the Indian High Commission, the opportunity to work with you, to see this day when we can be justifiably proud of not only our investors, our friends, but also the friendship that is India and Sri Lanka relationship and its defining feature.
The Ceylon Electricity Board Engineers Union has launched a Work to Rule campaign from 12 noon today over several issues, including the controversial Yugadanavi power plant deal. The union demands that the government scrap the deal with US-based energy company New Fortress Energy Inc. which includes a transfer of 40% of shares of West Coast Power Private Limited, the owner of Yugadanavi power plant. They're also calling on authorities to put an immediate stop to the abrupt transfer of CEB senior management. The union says that under the Work to Rule campaign, its members will only work during normal office hours on working days, except those who are on shift duties. The association also warns that they would resort to strike action if the relevant authorities fail to respond to their demands. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa says that the good governance regime was a bankrupt government that continued to mismanage borrowings by spending large sums on insignificant details of development projects. The Premier cited the changing of the roof design of the Bandaranaike International Airport as an example that accounted for a further 661 million rupees being spent. These comments were made by the Premier today whilst declaring open the new airstrip and runway constructed at the BIA.
Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa declared open the new airstrip and runway constructed under the Katunaika Bandaranaike International Airport Development Project. The project, funded by the Japan International Cooperation Agency, has built 23 new parking yards, bringing the total number of parking yards at Bandaranaike International Airport to 48.
Japan හිටපු අගමැති සින්සෝ ආබේ මහතාගේ ප්‍රධානත්වයෙන් කටුනාගේ ජාත්‍යන්තර ගුවන් තොටුපළ සංවර්ධන ව්‍යාපෘතියේ ගිවිසුම අත්සන් කළේ 2014 දී. 2015 දී බලයටපත් වුණ යහපාලන රජය මේ ව්‍යාපෘති නියමිත පරිදි කරගෙන ගියේ නැහැ. මේ ගොඩනැගිලි වහලේ මුල් සැලසුමේ නෙළුම් මලක හැඩයට වහලේ දී කරන්න නියමිත තිබුණයි. ඒ වෙනුවට ශාකාපත් එක හැඩයට වහලේ සැලසුම් වෙනස් කරන්න. විතරක් යහපාලන ආණ්ඩුව රුපියල මිලියන 661ක් වියදම් කරයි කියලායි මතක. ඒ වගේ බංකොලොත් මට්ටමකට වැටුණු යහපාලන ආණ්ඩුව පුළුවන් තරම් ණය අරගත්තා. හැබැයි කරපු දෙයක් නැහැ.
In business news, the Monetary Board of the Central Bank chose to keep the SDFR and SLFR rates at their current respective rates of 5 and 6% today. Speaking at the Monetary Policy Media Briefing today, Central Bank Governor Ajit Nivard Cabral responded to media questions on any IMF overtures by the government, saying that it has chosen the path of least economic pressure by focusing on alternative avenues.
The Central Bank's Monetary Board has decided to maintain the standing deposit facility rate and the standing lending facility rate at their current levels of 5% and 6% respectively. In its communique announcing the decision, the Monetary Board says that it has also noted the recent acceleration of inflation and is committed to maintaining targeted levels over the medium term with appropriate measures while supporting the economy to reach its potential in the period ahead. The board also noted a strong recovery of the Sri Lankan economy during the first half of this year, despite recovery having been somewhat affected during the third quarter. However, it also warns that while real GDP growth is projected at around 5% in 2021, the ongoing rise in COVID-19 infections globally and domestically may have some impact on this expectation. Speaking at the customary Monetary Policy Media Briefing this morning, Central Bank Governor Ajit Nivard Cabral offered a curt response to recent speculation on the government moving towards an IMF bailout.
Those are all discussions that can take place in any forum. But a final decision has to be taken by the government. Now that decision is that we don't need to seek an IMF facility. There is a 6-month plan that the central bank has put out, and we are implementing that plan, and we are confident that when that plan is being rolled out, that all these issues will be dealt with. Finally, going to any person or any organization, you are looking at the result. If the result is achieved, that is the most important thing. So if we can achieve the same result with less pain and with less uncertainty, with less amount of political as well as economic turmoil, I think that's the option that we should choose.
Meanwhile, with 2 months having passed since the unveiling of the central bank's 6-month roadmap, media personnel sought an update on the foreign inflows that have been projected.
When it's a short-term plan, you have always got to make sure that there is a certain time span in which so many of those initiatives could be implemented. I can tell you right now that the negotiations are at fairly advanced stages with regard to several of these new inflows that are due, and that will be materializing at different times, and we will make announcements of that once it is complete. It's normal that there is a radio silence being maintained until such time that these particular discussions are over, and we would state those as soon as we are ready to do that.
Further, on the question of the dual dollar rate being offered by informal remittance routes such as the Hawala system, Governor Cabral revealed that the bank is monitoring the progress of assurances given by currency exchange operators.
Yes, we are monitoring them. We have had several instances where it has not been entirely in accordance with their assurances. So we have seen certain instances where there have been lapses. We will deal with those. We are also dealing with some of the schemes that have been implemented over the last few months perhaps, which have also caused some disruption. Particularly some people use the banking sector as well. We have got wind of some of those instances and we are dealing with that.
Meanwhile, the governor also offered a clarification on the subject of the proposed remittance securitization scheme that has been the subject of some controversy in recent times.
There were some misrepresentations that were made by certain quarters that it is a mortgage of these remittances and so on. That's a complete fallacy. What we are doing is we are now looking at the central bank receiving every month a substantial portion of remittances that are being purchased in the market so that we can buy it in dollars and take it into our coffers. And nothing to do at all with the people who are remitting money. So they wouldn't be affected at all. Neither will those who are sending money. So that's why we want to make that very clear.
With that, we wrap up tonight's edition of First at 9. Have a good night.